One of the greatest pleasures a teacher has is being able to say, I knew him or her when. We're there during your formative years. We're teaching you the skills and the approaches to solve a wide variety of issues that will arise later in your lives. We also want to motivate and inspire you to pursue your interests and make a difference, so that each may rise to honorable achievement and contribute to the common good. And I feel that we as a group and some very special individuals have achieved this goal with Dr. Gallagher. Austin cites two of his teachers at Thayer as significant inspiration to him, and I have to confess, they are an inspiration to me as well. Austin was first introduced to the marine world in Mr. Sirico's 6th grade science class. Here they studied coral reefs, sea turtle migration, and whales and dolphins. What Steve also taught his students is a love of the sea and a responsibility as a world citizen to help conserve and protect this vast, yet finite resource. In 12th grade, Austin was in Mr. Schneider's marine science class. There, students learn even more about how we are dependent on the oceans, not just for all the life it contains, but also the way that a healthy ocean keeps Earth as a whole healthy, producing oxygen, absorbing carbon dioxide, moving both matter and energy around. Simply stated, all things begin and end with the sea. 2 years ago, I was attending a presentation by the Bahamian ambassador to the United Nations. His name is Elliston Ramming. He was recounting how the Bahamas was taking over the leadership of the UN Shark Coalition. He recounted that when he was approached to take this leadership role, all he really knew of sharks came from watching Jaws when he was a boy. After doing some research, he learned that a caught shark is worth about $50 to $100, mostly for its fin. That same shark kept alive is worth more than 100 times that through tourism. Over the past 20 years, shark-related tourism has contributed more than $800 million to the Bahamian economy. A single reef shark is estimated to be worth $250,000 over its lifetime for tourism. And sharks contribute to a healthy ecosystem as well. And again, last year I was diving in the Bahamas and came across a 10-foot-long hammerhead shark. It's big. All right, it was a 12-foot. It was a 15-foot-long hammerhead shark. It was huge. It was a beautiful, beautiful creature. And when I got back onto the boat, obviously I couldn't stop talking about it. My dive buddy told me of a study that suggested the hammerhead is actually evolving to extinction. Its specialized sensory system and other special features keep the hammerhead from adapting quickly to ecosystem changes. Now, why am I telling you these two stories about sharks? Well, because when I looked at some of Dr. Gallagher's research, I found two pretty interesting papers. One was Global Shark Currency, the distribution, frequency, and economic value of shark ecotourism. And the other was Evolve for Extinction, the cost and conservation implications of specialization in hammerhead sharks. I knew him when. While at Thayer, I knew Austin as a rather short, dedicated student. He did well in school and had a passion to help. I remember him presenting at Monday morning meetings, standing not here but on the Frothingham stage, teaching us of the plight of the Lakota Indian Nation and showing us how we as a group could help. Today, happily, the Shoulder to Shoulder program has the Pine Ridge Reservation, which is part of the Lakota Nation, as one of its service trips. Graduating from Thayer in 2004, Austin Gallagher earned his Bachelor of Science degree in Biology from Loyola University in Maryland. He then earned his Master's in Marine Science from Northeastern in 2010, and his PhD in Ecosystem Science and Policy this year. Also this year, Dr. Gallagher was named a Forbes magazine 30 Under 30 in Science. This is a list of the brightest young entrepreneurs, breakout talents, and change agents in 20 different categories. From their article, Austin Gallagher is making an impact in the area of conservation biology. He's also the founder of Beneath the Waves, a global NGO that does research on preserving environmental health of the oceans and reaches out to the public. Dr. Gallagher's research focuses on the daily and long-term survival of species, primarily apex predators. He's an award-winning photographer and filmmaker. I am proud to say that Austin is making a difference through his research, his devotion to health of the world, especially the marine world, and his dedication in educating and informing the public about such magnificent creatures and our need for their continued existence. Many of your teachers here knew him when. Please welcome Dr. Austin Gallagher.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's funny because the last time I was on the stage, or in Frothingham, I was really worried if my voice was gonna crack or not. So it's kind of funny to just come full circle and be back here talking to you guys today. So I'm gonna tell you guys a number of really cool things today, ranging from some stories from my research, and some really cool findings that we've had. I'm gonna talk about sharks a little bit because they're pretty cool animals, and I think they're really cool. But I'm gonna start out with a story because stories are awesome. So we're gonna go back to 2011, and I'm sitting on the back of this boat in the Bahamas, swaying side to side, trying not to get seasick, and I'm on my first ever remote field expedition to study sharks ever. First year of my PhD at the University of Miami. And we're about to go in the water and dive with sharks to observe them and make some observations and study their behavior. It's my first time doing this with sharks over 10 feet, like Don was saying, pretty big animals. And of course, I was really scared. I was. And I've wanted to study these animals my entire life, but at some point you just have to realize that this is a potentially risky situation. So I'm talking to my mentor, and we're getting ready, putting my gear on, and he's like, "Austin, just do it. Trust me, it's gonna be awesome. Go in the water." So I go in, and I make my way down to the reef at 30 feet. And I'm actually the only person in the water at this point. I don't know how that happened, but I'm the only one in there. So I'm down at the bottom, fiddling with my camera gear, getting my stuff ready, and all of a sudden, a 13-foot tiger shark approaches me from the distance. This is the exact photo that I took at this exact moment. And this was a really important experience for me because you see there's nothing else in the background here except other sharks. And this really big female tiger shark. And she came at me really slowly and gently, almost like she was floating towards me, and I could actually see her eyes moving up and down and around, focusing on me. She was really trying to figure out what I was doing. And she opened her mouth really wide, as almost like a display to say maybe hello, or maybe you should get out of here. And then she just moved on. And it was an incredibly beautiful, serene experience by myself down there at 30 feet. And that moment erased any innate fear that I had for these animals, and it really did kickstart a career studying and conserving sharks and other large predators. And this is a journey that I'm still on today, which is really exciting. So you can always trace it back to certain moments in your life. And I'm definitely going to talk to you guys about sharks today. Don't worry, there'll be some more shark photos. But, today's talk is really about passion. And passion is, I can tell you firsthand, it can do amazing things for you if you listen to yourself. So we're going to talk about passion a little bit today. But for me, I can trace it back, right? You always have to throw the picture of you when you're a kid in every talk. But this one's actually pretty cool because it really shows that I always wanted to explore. This is Halloween, and I had the astronaut outfit on, and my sister, who also went to Thayer, she has the princess, outfit on. So I always wanted to explore, and I always loved just trying to answer questions. I never made it to space, I probably never will, but the ocean was always my #1 passion. And I have to throw this picture up there too. This is a yearbook picture from 7th or 8th grade. Thanks to Mrs. Sherko for sending this to me. But I think this is funny because it just I was in your seat like 15, 20 years ago, not 20, 15, and I was just really, really passionate about studying the ocean, so you can really, make that connection. But for me, it was really always about the ocean. It was always about sharks, studying these animals. And it took basically 10 years of education after Thayer, some other degrees and all these other things, and some really amazing experiences, which I'm really lucky to have. But let's fast forward to it, because today I get to work on these guys, which is just amazing. This is a great hammerhead shark that I photographed in the Bahamas. Again, we keep coming back to the Bahamas, and we're actually going to go on a journey to the Bahamas later today. Bahamas is a really special place, like Mr. Donovan was saying. There's just a ton of sharks there. There's a lot happening. And we won't really talk about hammerheads much today. We're going to talk about tiger sharks. But these animals have really completely changed my perception of what animals really are in nature. Just to show you, they have this amazing metal detector on their head, and They swim at super high speeds. I like to call hammerheads the sports cars of the ocean. Let's do a really quick, super fast, this is going to be the fastest ever shark lecture on shark biology we've ever had. So quid pro quo, sharks are ancient. They've been around 300 or 400 million years. So you've heard of Jurassic Park, it should really be Jurassic Shark. They're really diverse, so there's 400 to 500 species. Actually, new species are being discovered all the time. Every couple of weeks they find a new one, usually in the deep oceans. Smallest one can fit inside your hand. The biggest one is a whale shark, which probably the length of this whole stage here. I've actually had the luxury of swimming with them. They eat plankton. It's pretty cool, 40 feet long. Found all over the world, from polar regions to the warm tropics, hammerheads. I do a lot of work on those guys. They're pretty amazing. Really slow growing. So sharks are actually fish, but fish that you might order at a restaurant or that you might catch on Cape Cod or something, those fish grow really quickly, right? They can reach maturity in like 1 year. Sharks take like 13 to 14 years, so it's a completely different situation. And because of this, sharks are really threatened today. So that's going to be just a really quick explanation of they're so sensitive to our presence. And this is a picture of a hammerhead shark that actually had its fin cut off, and the fin is worth a lot of money, as I'll tell you in a minute. So when we normally think of sharks, we think of this. This is air jaws, right? This is a great white shark, South Africa. I actually didn't take this photo. I have to give the credit to Chris Fallows, who pretty much discovered this behavior. So if you've ever seen a great white shark on Shark Week, Chris put them on the map. He's amazing. One of the best naturalists I've ever met. And he got this shot in the morning, right when the sun is rising, where the great white sharks are hunting seals. They breach out of the water at really high speeds, and they kill these seals, fur seals that are swimming around the island. Pretty amazing. So this is probably what you think about when you think about sharks, but this is probably what you don't think about. And I actually didn't even know this until I went to college and started reading papers and started talking to other people. Up to 90% of sharks are gone today, compared to 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's insane. It's the greatest environmental problem that you've never heard of. And this is primarily happening because of something called shark fin soup. So this is primarily a delicacy in Asia. I actually went to Asia last summer to do some research and some education, and I can tell you that it's everywhere. So a single bowl of shark fin soup goes for about $200 to $300 American. It's a lot. So it's like a status symbol in Asian culture. So because there's such a high demand on this, lots of sharks are being caught for their fins. And this, like I told you, greatest environmental problem you've never heard of. This map really paints it. These are some numbers from studies that my colleagues have done. And you don't have to be a math genius to understand that if you have 95% less of something today than you did even a couple days ago, that resource is going to be depleted. And we see that in shark populations off our coast, believe it or not. Southern Atlantic, Mediterranean, there are no sharks left. Even the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. And then in other places we know they're also declining. And then in other places where there's no reporting, you gotta imagine it's even worse. So because of all this, up to 100 million sharks are killed every year for their fins. This is insane, and this is leading some species to the brink of extinction. And they're vulnerable everywhere, so there's really no safe haven from them. Once you get 20 miles offshore, you're international waters, and it's really no man's land up there. So a lot of information is needed to understand where these animals are going, where they're giving birth, etc., so we can protect those areas. And this is important because sharks are top predators, right? You guys have taken classic ecology, biology. You know that if you're at the top of the food chain, you're really important to that food web. And they control the behavior of all these other animals. So sharks are like wolves, right? Wolves control elk and deer. And when there are no wolves, the elk and the deer explode in population, cause ecological mayhem. So the same thing happens in the ocean. And why I care about this, well, obviously I love these animals, they're amazing. But I think that the ocean, first of all, is a much cooler place with sharks in the water. And they're not dangerous, because if they were, I wouldn't have been able to take this picture and then tell you about it. But like Mr. Donovan was saying, we depend on the ocean. Our survival is so dependent on the ocean. 50% of the air we breathe comes from microorganisms in the ocean. Almost 60% of the planet relies on the ocean as a primary food source. So this is pretty significant. And what I'm doing about it is a lot. So I've invested a lot of time in learning how to be a good scientist, and I do a lot of research around the world on various species. And today I'm going to tell you a success story. So those figures that we saw earlier are a little jarring, but I'm going to tell you a success story focusing on these guys. This is a tiger shark. But I love making connections, just like we're doing right now. All of us are making connections about these animals. We're talking about them. And it's so important to educate. And it's also really important to activate really powerful voices out there. People who can really amplify what you're doing to millions and millions of people. And when you combine the science with that, that's where change happens. All right. So we're going to go on a journey to the Bahamas. And this is going to be an abridged version of probably one of the most amazing research projects I've been lucky to be a part of. Present to you has been happening for the last 6 years. We've sampled over 150 sharks, tiger sharks, like this big one right here. And we have learned so much about these animals. We've really changed the world for the outlook for this species. Tiger Beach is a shallow, pretty much devoid of life bank in the Bahamas. And I used to live in Miami. Tiger Beach is right here. This is the Bahamas, this is Grand Bahama. And this is what it looks like on here on the right. So you pull up there in your boat. You actually have to live on a boat when you're there because it's pretty remote. And every day you wake up, you have your coffee, walk out to the back of the boat, and you look around you, and you see lots of big black shadows around you. It's a really special place. And like I told you at the beginning of my talk, you can see some really amazing predators in the water there. So my team and I, and my PhD advisor at the time, we started an expedition. We started several trips to Tiger Beach to try to understand what these tiger sharks are doing. And I'm not going to lie, it's been pretty fun. So being able to go in the water, and that's me in the circle there, with animals like this big, and this is like 3 Siberian tigers put together. It's just insane. This is a 16-foot tiger shark, and I actually don't name wild animals, but there's a lot of people who dive there on a daily basis. Very popular. And this shark actually does have a name. Her name is Emma. And Emma has been coming back to Tiger Beach for 16 years. And she's really key to this story for a number of reasons. Think about that. She's been coming back to this place for 16 years. Why is she coming back there? But she's recognizable because she has this little notch on the back of her dorsal fin. So she is not shy at all. When you go in the water, she's called a supermodel because she comes right up to you and she wants your attention. She'll actually knock you over because she wants your attention. It's actually, I've never seen anything like it in my life. It's really cool. But in order to study the sharks and really get some data on them, we actually need to catch them. So that actually might sound a little weird. You're trying to save these animals, you're trying to learn about them. Why are you catching them? Well, the truth is we need to do that in order to take measurements, take samples, blood samples, fin clips, all these types of things. And this is what it looks like. So you guys have probably seen, shark tagging shows on TV, and you've probably seen some of these other groups who are doing this. That's amazing. We need a lot of work with these animals. But this is how we do it. There's no massive film crew. It's a pretty old boat, and we're bringing these 13 to 16-foot sharks on the back of the swim step that you get up on when you get out of the water. And it's pretty intense. These animals are extremely strong. They weigh up to 1,000 pounds, and they don't really want to be there on the back of the boat. So it takes a team to sort of restrain them, and when you get them on the back of the boat, it's like a NASCAR pit crew. So there's 8 or 9 people on our team. We're doing a bunch of stuff to these animals. We're trying to take samples as quick as we can, then we release the sharks back in the wild, okay? It's just like literally like NASCAR pit crew. So we're taking measurements. We actually put a pump inside the mouth, as you can see here. Pump is really important for a couple reasons. Number one, the pump is used for the animal to bite down on. So when they bite down on something, it kind of calms them down. It also occupies the mouth, which is the business end of the shark. We don't want to spend any time near that area. Also, it pumps fresh, oxygenated seawater over their gills. Right? These animals need to breathe in order to survive. and they need to swim in order to breathe. So when we have them immobilized on the back of the boat, we need to make sure water's going where it goes. So that's what that's all about. And in this photo, we are putting a satellite tag on the tiger shark's fin. Satellite tags are one of the many tools that scientists in my space are using to understand the movements of these animals, because if we can predict where they go, maybe we can protect those areas. And again, this is another photo of what it looks like. We actually started wearing wetsuits. The first trip we went to Tiger Beach, we didn't use any wetsuits. It's really hot outside, it's the Bahamas, you know, kind of feel like a seal when you're in a big wetsuit. But tiger sharks have extremely sharp skin. In fact, they have millions of little teeth on their skin called dermal denticles. Helps them in the water, you know, reducing drag. But when you're sitting on a 14-foot tiger shark and it's writhing and you're in board shorts, you can imagine that your legs are going to get pretty shredded up from all those little abrasions. Like taking sandpaper and rubbing it up and down your entire body, and then for a week throwing salt water on you. So we learned after the first trip that we need to suit up. So that's why we all look like penguins in that photo. So let's show you some data. These are what I call long-term movements. And this is a really simple graph to understand. Let me walk you through it. These are all the sharks that we tagged with satellite tags in the Bahamas. Okay, Bahamas are this little white star right here. All of these dots are position estimates that all of those tags sent to satellites and that we got back. Think about it like a GPS on the back of the shark, okay? And the different colors represent how long they stayed in each of those areas. So the darker the colors, the longer they stayed in the area. So these yellow spots is 5 to 15 days, dark spots is 30 days. So you can see that the animals spend a lot of time off the east coast of Florida, and Georgia, and South Carolina. But the crazy thing here, we did not know this until we started doing this work. So these tiger sharks go all the way out into the Atlantic Ocean. Hundreds and hundreds of miles away from shore, where really very few people have ever gone except for fishermen. Literally blew around you completely. And we actually had a couple animals come back, so they completed the loop. That was from the first, really 2 years of the study. So we said, wow, we have these amazing findings on our hands. These sharks are swimming hundreds and hundreds of miles. Why the heck are they doing this? So we had to go back to Tiger Beach to answer that question. But before we did that, we were able to make some predictions. You guys remember Emma? This is Emma. On the top figure, this is Emma in the fall at Tiger Beach. She's looking a little heavyset, let's be honest. And you don't actually see wild animals that are looking kind of girthy like that. You don't really see that in the wild, unless something else is happening. This is Emma in the spring. This is in around May or June. Back at Tiger Beach at the same spot. She's looking svelte. She's looking great. She's been in the gym. And that's funny, but the real point is something happened in those 6 to 7 months where Emma disappeared from Tiger Beach and came back looking completely different. What could it be? So we started thinking, well, maybe when we saw her at Tiger Beach, she had just eaten a huge turtle. Maybe she had just eaten all this food. But that didn't really make sense to us because there's really no fish at Tiger Beach except for sharks. There's literally hardly any fish at Tiger Beach. And some other clues helped us out. This is what it looks like when a tiger shark pukes on you. So sometimes when you catch these animals, they get really stressed out. And what they do is they regurgitate. It's like an evolutionary stress response. And imagine on the back of the boat, all of a sudden, it's like somebody takes 2 pillows and crashes them together and all these feathers explode on the boat. This is a cleaned up version of that. So inside this tiger shark, there was 400 feathers, bunch of crabs, lobsters, stone crab claw. I don't even know what that is. It looks like a sponge. But actually, tiger sharks have been known to have inanimate objects, non-organic items in their stomach, which is a whole other story. But the bottom line is, these are not high caloric foods, right? Not a lot of protein in birds. But tiger sharks are known to eat birds. Easy meal. It's like snacking on a really easy opportunity. So this is the simplified version of it, but we know that they're not eating at Tiger Beach. Okay? We kept going back there, and we noticed that, okay, well, why are these huge tiger sharks at Tiger Beach? And I'm kind of keeping the secret from you, but it should be pretty obvious what's happening. And I like this photo because this is Caroline, one of our research assistants, next to this huge animal. I mean, just look how big she is. Just amazing. The biggest sharks tend to come out at night. So we started doing some new stuff. We started taking blood samples, and we can actually do pregnancy tests on the blood, looking at different hormones, just like we do in humans. If we can do it on sharks, it's a little more complicated. You can't just do something like that. You need to really go into the lab and run those samples. But we did. We collaborated with some people who are really good at that. And what we found is that there are seasonal fluctuations in the hormones. The hormones that have the highest values are kind of in the fall. Okay, so maybe that has to do with something related to reproduction. We also started doing ultrasounds on these animals. Okay, this is very similar to the stuff that we do when we go to the doctor, right? These are very similar techniques. And this is another one of our research assistants, Carolyn, who's amazing. She's doing this ultrasound. She's wearing these almost like VR goggles on her head, trying to look inside the animal and figure out what's going on. And I can just tell you, it's so amazing. Every time I show this photo, it gives me chills, because just imagine holding a huge belly like that. It feels like there's water inside of it. You don't really know what's on the other side, and it could be this amazing discovery. What an amazing experience that is. And what we found was awesome. First, these are ultrasound images. First one here, SV, that is spiral valve. That's essentially their intestinal tract. That's not a baby. Over here, spiral valve again. Over here, and these little dots, you see these circles? Those are baby tiger sharks. We have found that between 30 and 40% of the sharks at Tiger Beach at any given time are pregnant, which is awesome. And we correlated that with observations. These animals have scratch marks from other sharks during that time. We correlated it with the blood, and we essentially proved that Tiger Beach is a really, really special place for these animals. But the story is ongoing, so we're still going back there trying to figure out even more. Essentially, what we figured out is that Tiger Beach is a maternity ward. We call it the Tiger Shark Maternity Ward. And if we had just gone in the water once and make these observations, like, that's me with the shark. Yeah, you can say that shark definitely looks pregnant. They're definitely pregnant. But you don't actually know that until you have evidence. I'm a big believer in evidence when it comes to anything. Climate change, all these things. The data doesn't lie. It really doesn't. And this actually made history, because this is the first time that any group of scientists had ever found something like this for big predators in the ocean. So we're really happy about that. But at the same time, there's a really important conservation angle to that. You might be wondering, why are there so many sharks in the Bahamas in the first place? Since 1990, the fishing of sharks has been banned commercially. So essentially, the Bahamian government figured it out early, and they realized we need to protect these resources. So over time, this population has become very stable, maybe even increased. We don't know that yet. But this proves that if you leave something alone, you protect it, just like a national park like Yellowstone, you can actually see wolves. Big predators can thrive. And that is an amazing success story. And there's many more game-changing discoveries that we're making. But to just kind of close this up, how do you go from being at Thayer Academy in a seat to doing these really cool things, and how do you become the first ever marine biologist to make the Forbes list? It's simple. You need to follow your passions. Take the risk. This actually isn't me, this is someone else. I would never do that. But really, passion has been the key to me, because it's helped me explore. I've traveled all over the world and done some amazing stuff, met incredible people. I know that I've made a difference. And honestly, I'm happy, because it's really the most important thing. So sharks, believe it or not, they don't talk. They don't really gesture, but they've taught me a lot. Sharks have taught me how to be a good scientist, how to be an entrepreneur, how to be a global citizen, realizing that my actions have implications for the entire planet, how to be a good person, how to be a good husband, and how to be a good mentor. But most importantly, it showed me what success really is. And it's not how much money you make, it's not all these things, cars and all that, it's all of this stuff. Sharks have showed me that. All right, so I really owe a lot to these guys. You know, it's been a really mutualistic relationship. There have been a couple close calls. But in general, I really owe these sharks a lot. So now it's your turn. I want everybody to close their eyes. Close your eyes. Everybody. Trust me, it's going to be okay. Okay. We're talking about passion here. I want everybody to think, what do you really care about in life? What do you love? What is it that gets you up every morning, day after day after day? There's something in there that you love, that you're put on this planet to do. What makes you feel good? And it might not come to you right now, and that's okay. Maybe it came to you instantly. But I want you to do this exercise over and over again, because this will show you what you're passionate about. Open your eyes. So, I want to end with this photo. This is a photo that I made in South Africa. This is a great white shark breaching on a fake seal decoy. This happens in about 1 second. You gotta be really quick on the draw. It's a 4,000-pound animal coming out of the water. I always remember watching TV and saying, wow, that's amazing. I could never take a picture like that. In 2010, maybe 2011, I made it happen. So the moral of this entire talk was not sharks are cool, which, let's be honest, they're really cool. But Thayer Academy, follow your passions. Trust me. Thank you.
Yes, you have to be very loud though.
You said you got a couple close calls. What were those?
Well, I can tell you the 1 minute version or the 30, so we're going to have to go 1 minute. There's this one place in the Bahamas where these sharks called oceanic whitetips, and it's actually this species right here. This is actually one of these moments that I'm telling you about right now. Jacques Cousteau once called this shark the most dangerous fish in the ocean, back in the 40s or 50s, maybe 60s. And I went to the Bahamas, and after a week, he was right. I could tell. These animals are incredibly bold, not shy at all, very curious. And on the last day of the trip, I had made a lot of really awesome photos, and it was amazing, learned some cool stuff. Last day, I went back in one more time to get some more pictures, and all of a sudden, the boat drifted about 100 feet away. All the other divers got out of the water, and it was just me and one other person, this girl, a really small girl on the top surface, snorkeling. All the sharks instantly knew that the odds were in their favor, and over the next 20 minutes, it was basically like, playing self-defense, playing zone defense, trying to basically just make sure the sharks were keeping their distance, and they were getting more and more curious, and they were kind of being less tolerant. Sharks are very tolerant of us in the water, which is actually amazing. They don't know what we are, but they were becoming less tolerant when there was only 2 of us, and then they started getting competitive. So, luckily I made it back to the boat, nothing happened, but that was, I don't want to do that again. Yep. How do we get our funding? It's a great question. Traditionally, you write grants to people, and they're extremely competitive, and they select you if they think you're good enough for it. And I've had some success with that. That's great. The model has changed completely, 100%. And today, I would say almost 100% of my funding for my research is from private donors, private organizations, and foundations. And I really, that's kind of the way science is going. And there's a lot of just amazing people out there who can make a real difference in what you're doing. And when you meet them, you need to capitalize on those opportunities. Yep.
And secondary question, in the wild, how long can most of these sharks live?
It's a great question. How long can these sharks live? Sadly, until a boat catches them and kills them. But from a biological standpoint, it ranges. 500 species, they all have different growth rates and all these things, but Generally speaking, some of the big boys that I was showing you today, 20 to 30 years. Yep.
You had the things you had learned from sharks up on your slides there, and one of your things was how to be an entrepreneur. And I was curious what that meant. I understood how you were a researcher and out there exploring and you made a living with it, but I was curious about entrepreneur.
Sure. So sharks have shown me how to be an entrepreneur because by meeting some really amazing people through my journeys, I've realized that economic and environmental values are not mutually exclusive. And businesses have kind of got us to where we are today with our planet, right? Industrialization, climate change, all those things. But going back to that last question, I know that business is going to get us out of here. So, you can work with somebody like Coca-Cola, they can fund you to do your work, and you need to be an entrepreneur to be able to speak the language of the CEO at Coca-Cola, for example, to get them interested in what you're doing and convince them that this is important.
Again, thank you very much, Dr. Gallagher.